remember, like Rob Clark,
and Joe Bordelli.
Watch the debate. I'm so tired of people saying, "Oh, did you watch the debate?" You know what you could debate, dude? You could debate these nuts. Ha! Got them.
In the heart of Dallas, where legends unfold, a tale of shadows, mysteries untold, but truth is obscured in the depths of the night. The Lone Gunman Podcast sheds a flickering light.
Section 107 of the Fair Use Act of 1976 provides protection to use copyrighted material for research, analysis, education, and commentary purposes. We here at Loose Moose Productions reserve that right. Now, on with the show. Here's Joe B. and the Triple B. Hey, Aunt Udine, how's things in Texas?
Everything is going to hell down here in Texas.
Hands on Triple B and Joe B and the Triple B, baby. Triple B and Joe B. Rock on, get Joe Morelli. Triple B and Joe B and Triple B, baby. Triple B and Joe B. Rock on, get Joe Morelli. And here we go.
And here we go. What's up, everybody? I'm gonna hide that because it's cutting across me and Joe's.
Get a duck the graphic
out of here. Get that shit out of here. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 317 of the Lone Gunman Podcast, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, handsome Joe Borelli, and our guest of the evening, the esteemed proprietor of Two Princes and a King. That's tpoc.com, where you can find all things Carmine, his blog articles, links to his books, and a whole lot of knowledge there. So welcome, Carmine, back to the show, buddy. What's happening?
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. Nah, I'm doing okay. It's good to be back. See you and Joe again.
Yes.
A lot's happened since last time, but, I still remember last time we weren't even going to talk about what we were supposed to last time because of the first attack that we'll be going into later. So,
yep.
It's been a full year as far as I'm more than welcome what you guys think of it, but I'm shocked at the amount of people who aren't talking about it.
It's been a lot of quiet people. It seems like it's just, the media is controlled by the left. So,
of course. Yeah, the public, I totally understand why they're being quiet. But I mean, the corporate media in either side, they're going to talk about their, they want to hit all their talking points. But I'm just surprised as far as the research community, how many people aren't looking at anything or talking about anything.
Well, the people that are looking at it are part of the cuckoo crazy committee, if you know what I'm saying, like the tinfoil hat people.
Yeah.
There has been some decent. I've seen a couple podcasts about it, like Danny Jones had a good one on it. We had like a former Secret Service guy on there talking about it. But yeah, you're right. Not a lot of alternative media coverage, not a lot of corporate media coverage. It just seems like it's been swept under the rug, forgotten about, and move on. But
yeah, no, I agree with that, and we'll get into it later. But I think it's part of a bigger issue and a bigger pattern that a lot of people just don't realize is occurring or don't want to discuss because there's no good answers. There's no easy answers.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And like we talked about before the show, it does kind of mirror some things that we are very familiar with. So,
oh yeah, yes. Just even as I think we discussed a little bit last show, but it was just amazing, and it still is, to see a alternate version of the JFK story in real time. So we were not around for the original when JFK was assassinated. But from all the books I've read, from all the material I've looked over, from all the evidence, people reacted almost exactly the same. Conspiracies began, real investigation began, but it just played out. You could hear the same conspiracies that you heard of Dealey Plaza just remolded for the modern age. And it's, yeah.
And as the days went by, you heard more and more bits and pieces drizzling out.
Mm-hmm.
Like when 9/11 happened, you kept hearing these things drizzle out. And, I'm sure, with time, it's like with anything, I think, once he gets in there, he said he was going to set up like an assassinations committee to look into a lot of this stuff. Because I'm sure he wants to know the truth about his own almost death. You know what I mean? At least I would want to know. And hopefully he sticks with what he said he was going to do, and release all the files and be done with this shit once and for all. But we had this guy Carmine on the show last week that wrote a book called The Four Guns, and where you kind of looked at the famous guns of history of the presidential assassinations that have occurred. And, the one common thread between the assassin of Garfield, McKinley, Lincoln, these are all guys that basically were caught red-handed, basically were proud of what they had done and exclaimed it.
And we're stalking the victims for a significant amount of time, too, and all three of them.
Yeah, things were planned. It was like a planned assassination. So, and of course, they were using pistols, so you had to get close.
Mm-hmm.
Until we get to Lee Harvey Oswald, the only assassin that used a rifle, the only assassin that did not.
The first assassin, because now we have crooks.
Yeah.
So the
he didn't
first
get a chance to say I didn't do it. But Oswald proclaimed his innocence. It wasn't something he was proud of if he did it. Normally an assassin would take credit for something like that and explain why he did it. I did it because he's a commie son of a bitch, or whatever the excuse is.
Yeah, no, I utterly agree. If one of the things that people might be interested in, if they go to my website, is I have on the front page, I believe, I have a link to one of the articles I wrote called The Lee Harvey Oswald Timeline Myth, and I presented it at Lancer years back. But essentially, the problem, in my opinion, something the Warren Commission did not understand, and the problem with the entire Oswald story is, if he did it alone, he could only know as soon as the media let him know. And the media didn't tell everybody until the 17th. Good luck. You've got to come up with a motive, undertake everything you're doing while going to work every day, while sleeping every day, while under the sight of people every day, and no practice? Okay. If that's the story you'd like to stick with, good luck to you. But I don't think it would hold up in court, no matter what court, whether you want to go civil or you want to go criminal. I don't think that case is going to make it in court. And that's what the commission didn't understand, is that if he did it alone, he doesn't have the time. So
exactly.
That's the crux they're in. And they don't want to, and like I've discussed with you guys before privately, I think the real secret is they don't know. And it frightens them because they don't know that it was possible that someone was able to do that to the head of state without the state's compliance. Scares them and shows them that they can be powerless. So, because if they had the answer, if they could actually prove Oswald, if they could destroy everything I just said and somehow prove that in those few days with that 30 scant hours roughly that he had to do everything, why don't they? It's real easy to put all this to bed if they have the goods. They don't. So they have to call us crazy. They have to say anyone that questions them is a conspiracy theorist. They must resort to personal attacks because they don't have evidence.
They control the investigation with their own investigators.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't ask the right questions to the right people and so forth and so on. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
before you get too deep into this, Joe, your audio is dog shit again. I just wanted to let you know.
it is still.
Yeah, you got the crackle pop speeds.
Okay. Continue. I'll be right back.
Okay. So real quick, I just want to explain to everybody why we're doing this on Wednesday night. Normally this is a Friday night show, but this weekend is convention weekend in Dallas, and Joe will be in Dallas. I will not. We'll be there in spirit, right, Carmine? We'll be there in spirit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Video. I'll make the video.
Yeah. And a lot of people will be there and attending and paying attention. So we are going to go live Friday night, but it will be possibly an hour later than normal, around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm gonna have Joe live in Dallas from the conference, and we're gonna be talking about all that. So we figured we would have Carmine on tonight, Wednesday. Normally Wednesday we reserve that for our members only, but we figured we just do it live for everybody here tonight. While Joe is trying to figure out his audio issues, I don't know what is the deal. I mean, we are. So everybody, we'll be changing streaming platforms. I think Friday night will be the last time we're using StreamYard. They decided to more than double their yearly rate.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean it was expensive before, and now it's like $500 and some a year.
I remember. Yes, I was going to say. I recall back in the day when you were doing just the audio, or having to pay like large amounts of money just to have your audio up.
Right?
Get all the audio advanced stuff. So that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're moving over to Restream. Should be after the last show on StreamYard should be Friday night. So hopefully it'll clear up Joe's audio issues. I don't know if it's that or what it is. It's so hit or miss, these audio things. But you sound great. I sound great. So, and the reason for the graphic this evening, and I knew Carmine would find it funny, and that's why I did it. It's not meant to say I hope he passes away anytime soon. We just didn't know. We just didn't know if he was going to come on the show or not. He hadn't answered Joe's email yet, and like,
oh yeah, no, I answered it as soon as I was able to get to it. We had a couple outages the last couple of days, so
yeah, no worries. I mean, it's just maybe Carmine, maybe not. We don't know. So we're just gonna have a show, and we were ready one way or the other. It doesn't really matter.
I appreciate the starting year too, because it wasn't makes me much younger than I actually am.
Well, I was like, I wonder when he was born. He's probably younger than me. At least it seems like he is, by at least 5 years, 6 years. So you're welcome, sir.
Can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay.
You're not crackling, popping, or speeding up.
I switched browsers, and so when I went upstairs, I turned it on my phone and was listening, and it has been hit or miss, like Rob said. It's 1 week it's fine, 1 week it's terrible. It's perfect for the members only, and that's one of the reasons why we're switching.
Yeah,
in addition to
and you're still having problems.
Yeah, in addition to the crazy increase that they're asking, we thought it was appropriate. So
anyway, we got some things to run down through here first. I just because you're Carmine, you're an expert on all things JFK assassination. So
I appreciate that.
I came across a very old paper, dude, from researcher Gary Muir, right?
Okay.
He's old school. This is from March 11th, 1968. So his analysis may be a little dated, but it also might be better because he's closer to the event than we are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But he wrote this thing out, and he has a little map that he drew of, and I don't know how well we can see that. I should have copied it, but of course it's Dealey Plaza, and he's kind of mapped out where some arrests were made that day and who they actually arrested. And a couple of these people I never heard of before, which is interesting. So we'll start with number one. His number one. He says, Position A, which is the Dow Tex building, 3 known arrests and a possible 4th took place around and in the Dow Tex building. Okay. Number 1 is somebody we all know very well, Jim Braden.
Yeah.
Right.
Braden.
Okay. He was a white male, age 48, from Beverly Hills, California. He claims he was trying to get a cab on Elm Street shortly after the shooting occurred. He then entered the Dow Tex building and attempted to use a phone on the 3rd floor, but found it was out of order. On returning to the ground floor, Braden was reported to the police as a stranger in the building. He was taken by the arresting officer, name unknown, to the sheriff's office, whereas he was interrogated by the officer's superior. Approximate time of arrest was around 1 p.m., and Deputy C.L. Lewis states that Braden had been in town only 2 days and was in the Dow Tex building when the shooting occurred. So, Carmine, do you have any thoughts on our old pal Jim Braden?
Yes, I do have a few comments about him. So, as we all know, he was, I believe, largely made famous by Garrison.
Yeah, who thought he was?
He was known by mirrors, we can see. Yeah, by others, but his fame or infamy,
yes,
was gained during the Garrison case. I actually looked into him a bit, and I found that while he did have, of course, criminal connections, while he did have, questionable goings on in his life, he was actually being monitored at the time by his parole officer. So he had to check in that day.
Yeah, even in Dallas, he had to check in, right?
Yeah. So the problem is, it's one of times, similar to the Oswald issue, is that because of the timeline we have of his events, because of him going to his parole officer, then going to the building, then going back to the parole officer and being observed by others later, and then getting arrested, he's not the guy. He didn't have a gun. He didn't have access. He wasn't there when the cars were going by. But like we've seen a million times with a million different names, that might be an exaggeration, 1,000 times with 1,000 different names. People say that's the guy. They don't have the evidence for it. They can't prove 100% that's the person, but they are committed, at least to writing a book about it and saying that's the guy. So
shit luck. Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like I said, if he'd had, for instance, someone that I've posited as a possibility is a guy called John Henry Hill. You can read about him on my website, but I actually got Hill with a gun, according to Warren Commission testimony, walking down the street 15 or 20 minutes before the assassination happened, just walking around with a gun he just bought. A rich gentleman, oil gentleman, who had just sold off all of his his businesses and decided the next day was going to go on a hunting trip with his wife. So it's a possibility, but I'd say I can get him almost a Dealey Plaza. That's what you need to do if you really want to make somebody viable. You have to get them with a weapon in hand near the scene or at the scene. And Braden's at the scene, but he's got no weapon. There's no plan. And you have to have motivation. Like, Hill hated JFK. JFK blocked a deal that lost him millions. His administration blocked a deal that lost him millions. So you've got to have all those elements in place. We basically have to do the Warren Commission's work if we want to have a viable candidate for who did it.
So Braden's basically on probation, going to Dallas on a business deal.
Yeah.
And
which was not going to work.
As an assassination attempt. Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Was it a geology deal?
I believe it was some sort of report like that, or he was trying to Or you know what? No, that might just be DeMoore and Schultz, because I know DeMoore and Schultz was involved in a bunch of different.
I think it was an oil. I think he met with Hunt.
Yeah, it was an oil deal. It might have been a survey. I don't know if it was a survey or if it was like he thought he knew areas.
Yeah.
But most likely, if Braden was involved, it might have been a scam. Maybe he was trying to scam Hunt out of some money. You know, I mean, maybe he was trying to say that he had.
Then you hear, he had an office in the same building as G. Ray Gill and David Ferry and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
I think that's why Garrison was on his ass, but he couldn't get him extradited from California.
Well, and the whole, I think what it was there was a series of early on correct deductions by Garrison that unfortunately ended up misleading him by the end of it to a greater conspiracy than it ever could have been, which ended up destroying his case. You know, he was correct. I actually found the file that shows that there is a version of the what was it? It was either the Louisiana State Police or the FBI saying that one of their private informants said that Clay Shaw did in fact use the alias Garrison claimed.
Yeah.
He did use that alias. But he didn't use that alias because he was trying to kill the president. He used that alias maybe because he was undertaking things that were illegal in the state because he was a gay gentleman, or to cover up, illegal business activities that he was running. He also was connected to the CIA. Garrison was right about that too. He was tripping over CIA spy nets. It just were not the nets he thought they were. They were information nets. They were business connection nets, which Shaw was one of their informants that they lied about. So Garrison had a lot of reasons to doubt what the government was saying because they were lying. It just wasn't what he thought they were lying.
We call that, Carmine, the right ta-ta, but the wrong co-host.
Exactly. That was Candy did a great job with that.
Yes, and the immortal words of Dean Andrews.
Yeah.
Well,
all right, the next victim out of the
what was that other one? You're as crazy as your mama.
And Carmine, we'll hear from Dino a little later. We have a new tradition that we end off the show with. But I just want to bring up one thing, Rob, before we move on. Isn't Jim Braden a D.B. Cooper suspect? It's something Braden, but it's.
I'm sure at this point.
Who's the something Braden?
Whoa! You asked me too quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it's something Braden. I don't know if it's Jim. I think it's another name.
Yeah, it might just be a gentleman because DB.
I forget his first name, but it's not Jim. It's
okay.
Ted Braden.
Ted Braden. Yes.
Yeah.
Ted Braden.
And one more thing, the guy you were describing with the gun, and I had this thought in my head, and this is from Tiny Dancer. Was that the really tall gentleman that was alleged to be possibly Jerry Hemming?
Oh, and it turns out who it actually was John Henry Hill. He was 6'8", blue-eyed, blonde-haired, fit the entire description. And what's funny is Steve Rowe, who Rob knows, who were on different sides of the aisle as far as the assassination, but we both were hunting the same information. I just happened to find something before he did, a certain document that shows. And I mean, you can if you look on my website, it's The Man About Town is the name of my investigation into him. And it basically, he and his wife just drove around town all day buying hunting supplies for the next day. And then they went and had lunch like 10 minutes away from Dealey Plaza at a local hotel. And then he's like, honey, I'm going to go. And then just leaves with the gun. And that's it. Nobody hears from him again for a few hours. And then he just reappears. And then the next day they go and, this would just be a deduction if he were to be guilty. Well, what a better way to get rid of all the forensic evidence from the guns than to go on a hunting trip and just fire them a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So I'd say that someone like Hill, like I said, you have to get them, in my opinion, and some people might think this is too high a bar, but if you want them to be a viable suspect, you have to get them near Dealey Plaza with a weapon and a motive day of. It's the only way.
All right, our next poor bastard arrested in the Dowtex building or coming out of it. Matt Dowdett. No, I'm joking. Of course.
Nice. Judy Baker.
No, I'm sorry. I meant Larry Floor.
Lawrence.
Matt, I'm sorry. I watched this video earlier today that Matt posted on Facebook where he was timing the walk that it took from where Oswald got out of the cab at the corner of Beckley and Neely to walk to his rooming house. The Warren report says that it took him in their recreation, 5 minutes, 45 seconds. Matt walked it. It took him 8 minutes and like 26 seconds. What are you laughing for? No,
maybe they thought he.
Sorry, don't mind me.
Anyway, I thought he bared a really striking resemblance to Larry Floor in this video. But I digress. So Larry Floor, Larry, because Larry was a little bit intoxicated at the time. He was age 23, white male. He was arrested by Denham and Trantham after using the telephone on the third floor of the Dow Tex building. Now, didn't they just say above here that this other ass went to the third floor and it was out of order? Yeah. I don't know. They said he was detained for behaving in a suspicious manner, and he was frisked outside the Dow Tex building and then taken to the sheriff's office at approximately 12:50. This entire incident also was recorded on film by photographers William Allen and James Murray. Now here's somebody I've never heard of before. And by the way, I don't think Larry Floor was doing anything.
Yeah.
Except I don't know why he was intoxicated at that time of the morning, wandering in and around the Dow Tex building. But
well, it is the 60s. I mean, seriously, I'm not even talking, people would say, you can guess what the average person was doing, but we know for sure that people would think in the higher echelons of the intelligence circles, people would, refrain from such things. But let me tell you, people like Jim Angleton and other high ups in the CIA were having liquid lunches every day. Where people thought there was actually a member of the counterintelligence staff who thought that Angleton was a spy because he always had his head down after lunch on his desk, and someone's like, "No, he's loaded." It's not because he's a spy. It's because he had 5 drinks at lunch, and now he's going to take a nap. So it doesn't surprise me, especially down south. You know what? People in Texas, they like to have a drink. I think everybody likes to have a little drink once in a while, but people in Texas like to have a couple drinks.
Hey, so. It was a Friday, Rob. It was a Friday.
True.
It's nice. Man, it's a party. You know what I mean?
It was 5 o'clock somewhere.
Presidents in town, yeah.
All right, the next person I've never heard of before being arrested in Dealey Plaza, and his name is William Sharp of Detente Street in Dallas. White male, no age given. He was arrested in the Dow Tex building without a good excuse for being there. He was arrested at 12:45. Sharp had been detained by an unknown number of uniformed Dallas officers and turned over to our buddy Jim Lavelle, who then took charge of Sharp and took him to the sheriff's office. What happened next to Sharp is unknown. You ever heard anything about this, Carmine?
No. That's one of the few people I don't think I have ever heard of.
Yeah.
I would wonder that there isn't maybe like the Dallas police record system doesn't have any files on him.
Yeah, William Sharp. Nobody knows what happened to him. But again, nobody knew what happened to the Tramps either for 30 years.
And if he's using, here's the whole another, levels of deception. If this William Sharp is one of the people responsible, if he somehow was playing the integral role in the assassination, why would he give his real name?
Right.
Just saying. You're probably gonna try to not identify yourself and escape. I don't think. It's interesting that he's an unknown name, but yeah, if we go by, look at we've discussed this prior off air, but look at the witness pool. Half of the witness pool could have walked away right afterwards because the Dallas police had no way to corral people. So people were just walking away in droves. They were just leaving. They were upset. They had seen something crazy. They wanted to go home. So all those people could be, and they're unknowns. The police let them slip through their fingers instead of the FBI.
Yeah. And of course, dark complected man, umbrella man,
Yeah.
the Bush lady did get out of there as far as we know without being corralled by the DPD.
And I'm sure Zapruder would have too if he didn't decide to go to Time Life and then Time Life notified the FBI.
And there was a fourth person arrested outside the Dowtex building and was recorded on film by an amateur photographer named Phil Willis. The man has never been identified in any of the previously mentioned three. It's Willis Slide 13, according to Richard Sprague. Now, I believe the image they're talking about here is an older gentleman in like an oversized sport coat. Who I'm not sure if you've all seen or not. I think it happened reminiscently right around the time of the tramps as well. But you see this guy being led away by a police officer, and he's definitely an older gentleman, probably in his 60s, looks like, and he has like an oversized jacket on, but he's never identified in any way. I don't think he's anybody really, but he looks like he has money. He's well dressed, well groomed, but never identified. So, I mean, it's a little sketchy, you know what I mean? But
another, and yeah, who knows who? I mean, if he was well dressed and well groomed, would I? When referring back to Hill, the reason why I even was led to Hill was because the place that he bought his gun from earlier that day, the Cullum Sports Goods store, was run by one of the people who got to select the path of the motorcade, because there were a bunch of local leaders that influenced the path of the motorcade. So it would go by their businesses,
right,
and it would go to certain areas of the city.
Yeah.
So it
I don't
wouldn't
think
surprise
a
me if
rifle
there
store owner shouldn't have a say in that.
Perhaps not. but he was on the, you know, he was in the group of businessmen who were able to influence local politicians to, you know, make it go past more of the areas they wanted him to see of the city.
Yeah, for sure. And when you think, you know, it's easy for local business owners to be involved in that type of politics. But when you take it back to, like, say, Jerry Patrick Hemming being alleged to be this guy, what would Jerry Patrick Hemming be doing buying a rifle that morning on November 22nd? Like, it wouldn't happen.
Well, and the thing is, the only thing I literally couldn't get, I could get photos of the time, I could get the witness testimony. That's how I was able to piece it together to find out who he was. Once I found a picture of him from high school, and once I found a picture of his wife from later in life, and I could put it all together, and I saw that it was Hill. It's just but still, even with all that, even getting him that close, I can't say he's the guy, because it's not honest. Unless you have the goods, you cannot say it's the guy. But I can say he's damn close, and he was just walking. That to me is what strikes me so odd, is that he had a car. He bought a ton of stuff at Coleman Boren, which he had to have loaded in the car, which his driver or his wife drove to the hotel for lunch later. Why did he take the rifle and walk around town to lunch?
He wanted to be a big shot.
Apparently, you know what I mean? That just seems so brazen. That you would just walk around with it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense either, because you're a rich guy. Just throw it in your car and drive to lunch. Why are you?
And you're already 6'8". I mean, everybody's gonna be looking at you.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna know exactly who you are. I mean, how many 6'8" guys?
All right, our next position, we move to the corner of Elm and Houston for some more arrests. Professional photographers Jack Beers, Dallas Morning News, and William Allen, Dallas Times-Herald, recorded the arrest and detention of two men at Elm and Houston near the TSBD. The man, one Negro and one Cuban, are shown being arrested by the Dallas police. They are then led away from the school book depository by police and put in a police car. Now, this seems awful hanky, but I'm pretty sure that we've all seen photos of this happening, and that is the arrest of Bonnie Ray Williams, Danny Arce,
Yep.
right? William Shelley, and Jack Doherty. Of course, they leave out the two white guys because they probably didn't I don't think they handcuffed any of them, but I think this is when they arrested those four guys and took them down to the station for questioning. And that's what we see. And, they're being led down away from the school book depository. They're getting put in a cop car. And that's who that is, because they were all members of the floor lane crew. Well, except for Jack Doherty. Yeah. That morning. So I think that's what those arrests were about. Position C.
Wait, Rob, can I stop you?
Sure.
That was never confirmed to be Doherty, right? Because there isn't 100%. There isn't an actual photo of him, right? And I know which picture you're talking about. It's the same one where that guy that's like pushing 400 pounds, when you look back to the depository, is in like a big suit, like by the tree. We went over this and yeah, he's a big.
I think I have the photo in question handy. And the reason is I thought that I had identified Jack Doherty in the picture, because in the testimony, it claims that he was arrested along with these folks and taken down to the station for questioning. So he had to be with them, right? The question is whether or not it's a cop or it's Jack Doherty. Hang on one second.
Yeah, we went over this maybe months and months and months ago. It might have been the guy in the tan sport coat episode, but I could be wrong. But while you pull that up, yeah, there was this like weird guy, that like huge guy in a suit, like towards the TSPD in the back.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking of, but I don't think that that's
the
the
same
photo
one.
in question.
Okay.
I'm downloading it now. Just give me 2 seconds. And I put it up with a photo of Doherty, I believe, that was found later, alleged to be Doherty. I'm not sure if our good friend Linda Giovanni Zambonini found it. I know she's been checking into him and his background, and he was in the military, right? We know that from his testimony. So let me load up this picture here for everybody to take a look at. Now, the image that you're going to see is the alleged image of Jack Doherty on the left in the military. Okay? Now, the picture on the right is Danny Arce. It's part of these folks. As they're being arrested, like we were just talking about, outside of the school book depository. You can tell it's in front of the depository because of the cinder block wall back there. And the red arrow points down to a figure. That is not Bill Shelley. And look at the ears. They both got big ass ears. You know what I'm saying? And if you were to take the hat off of this dude, turn his head to the left, he does have, his eyes have this downward squinty thing going on. Excuse me. And that's also seen in this other photo. So I'm saying that that's Jack Doherty. I could be wrong, but that's my very non-professional opinion.
Okay, so do you care if I drop something? Hopefully that'll help.
Yes.
Where do I post? Okay, chat with it. Drop it in the chat.
Present share screen.
Oh, actually, I can just give you the link in the chat, and then you can just.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm technologically challenged. That's a project by a class at the University of George Washington University. It's a teacher that had her students go through the JFK witnesses and try to identify people. And that's who they believe Doherty is. They have a picture from him back in high school in comparison to his military picture, and then a picture at the scene who they believe could be Doherty.
Huh.
Wow. And Rob, yeah, you definitely brought this up on a previous episode of TLG, and I definitely agree. I mean, I can't think of anyone that is a better candidate.
He's got the ears too that you were mentioning.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the ears they're significant. I mean, they're very noticeable. I can't think of a better candidate than.
I'm going to show everybody the picture that Carmine was talking about.
And it's a time comparison, so you can actually put them together with the other one.
Yes. But I don't know, man. This dude's got like a big, long. Who was a guy that played in the Munsters? Lurch?
Herman. I played Herman Munster. Fred Gwynn.
This dude looks like very Lurch-like in his body proportions. I mean, he looks like a tall dude. He's got long ass arms, a big, long face, head. I don't know. Because to me, the other guy has a pretty scrunchy looking face.
Yeah, see, that might
strong jawline.
I think that on the right, that could be Doherty. On the left, it might not be Doherty. Though the ears are we sure that is Doherty, that picture from the military?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to ask Linda where she got it, but
because I was going to say the project, the Washington University or the George Washington University project, they have him from multiple different eras, so you can actually match the face up. You can see that he kind of looks like that military photo that she found in the upper right one. The 1940.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely doesn't look mentally retarded either. Which they said he was.
Yeah, some sort of emotional.
Truly did. Yeah, he was slow. And I don't know if we've kind of assumed that it was some type of PTSD from the war. I think that's the common,
which is possible. That's what happened with Nagel. I mean,
and Tippett.
Yeah,
right.
Well, they called it shell shock back then.
Yeah.
Very, very jumpy fellow. Very jumpy fellow. If you would be too if you had a grenade.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you'd have been in a trench, listening to bullets whiz above you.
Yes. All right. So that takes care of that. Then we go to position C, which is the railroad tracks north of the school book depository, where more arrests occurred. At 1:08 p.m., shortly after the description of the suspect was broadcast over the police radio, Patrolman Barnard reported having apprehended a suspect fitting that description. Barnard had the man cornered at the end of Laws Street, which is a dead-end street near the railroad tracks. The man was drunk and taken in at 1:15 p.m. I believe the man was probably Lonnie Ray Wright, a white male 3-time loser. He is recorded as having been drunk on the railroad tracks and put in jail by Officer Lewis. There is no record of Wright having been questioned as to what he might possibly have seen while he was on the railroad tracks. Now, as we have learned in later years, who was the guy, Carmine, that was arrested kind of with the tramps, kind of, but not? He was like the fourth tramp. It was the LaFontaine's book was about that dude.
Oh.
Shit.
Yeah. I remember the book, and I remember them discussing him.
Chat, help us out here. Who was that dude? They did like a... Oh, man, was it like a... what was that show Bill O'Reilly was on? Hard Copy or something? They did like a hard copy special on the guy. Damn it, it's right on the tip.
They called it the fourth tramp. I think you're right about the...
Yeah. What was his name? That's going to bug me.
Oh, no, that was...
John Elrod?
Yes.
That's what it was. John Elrod.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm just like going through myths in my head. And I'm like, okay, no, that's okay. The hunt, that was the hunt study the HSCA did. No, that was Sturgis.
But this sounds just like his story, right?
Oh, okay.
He was drunk. He was arrested on the railroad tracks.
Which
Okay.
they did him a favor, really. I mean, if you're drunk on the railroad tracks.
But again, here's another guy that we have the arrest report for 30 years later.
Yeah.
That we didn't know was ever arrested that day near Dealey Plaza.
Yeah.
And of course, this was done in 1968, so they definitely wouldn't have known who it was. They might have suspected it was this 3-time loser, poor Lonnie Ray. But alas, no. Now, here's an interesting one. Position D, and that's directly in front of the school book depository arrests. The arrest and detention of 3 men shortly after the shooting has been well recorded on film. And I believe what they're talking about here is the 3 tramps.
Yep.
So this technically, in 1968, I don't think that they were clear about where these guys were really arrested at, which is back on a train car in the rail yard. They just showed them walking them through Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, doing the
It
purple.
may have looked to them at the time that they were arrested in front of the school book depository. So I think they are putting a little more importance on these fellas than need be, given where they were actually arrested at.
It's kind of like one of the Donald Wayne House. It's like Donald Wayne House. What people don't know, usually most people don't know, is that Donald Wayne House was the first person arrested for shooting JFK. He was arrested in Fort Worth before Oswald, about a half an hour before Oswald. Because the police were just trying to grab anybody. Anyone that looked like a vagrant, anyone that looked like a criminal, they were going to grab and try to blame for this. So House got it before anybody else did, but then they realized, oh, okay, we got Oswald, never mind, and then released him. But they were just trying to scoop up anybody they could that could be a possible suspect or possibly have seen something.
Well, I think somebody dimed out House by saying that they saw him speeding away and he had a rifle in the back seat of his car. So they put and they gave a description of the car. They got him and arrested him in Fort Worth. And you're right. Yeah, one of the first arrests, or if not the first arrest.
That might be actually an interesting. I've never thought about doing that, but that might be interesting to discuss one day. Is just all the false arrests, because I guarantee House wasn't the only one. I guarantee they picked up not just these guys, but they picked up people that they identified and they put in a cell until Oswald they got the call that nope, it's this guy.
Right. Well, I mean, we're going through the list here. There's a lot of them here that went to the jail and got interrogated and probably held on to. I mean, we know the 3 tramps, they held on to them for a week or two after, you know.
Oh, and that still persists. I mean,
just to make
we know after the HSCA, we know after confirmation, we've done our own studies into it and can show people exactly with the pictures who they were and who they were not. But there are some people that have, they've married themselves to a bad theory and they won't divorce it. They're going to the bitter end with that theory.
Yeah.
Now here's a weird one. Was that Joe?
You're good. You can go.
What?
No, I was gonna say you're good. Go.
Oh, okay. I thought you were breaking up there. Position E is from inside the school book depository. Okay. Mm-hmm. Shortly after the shooting, and about at the time of the discovery of the spent shells in the school book depository, Alan Sweat, chief criminal deputy, was standing directly in front of the school book depository. A Dallas police officer brought a boy in a sport coat up to Sweat and proclaimed, "Here is the man that done the shooting." And I quote that shit. Okay. Officers began to question the man immediately, and the crowd became very aroused. The suspect was quickly taken to the sheriff's office in the company of city officers and the 2 deputy sheriffs. The man was then questioned by detectives and police. Does either of you have any idea who in the hell he's talking about here?
I've heard that name before, Sweat, but
Alan Sweat. This person that someone, because I have never, and I'm not saying I've read every witness report, but I've read a few hundred.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever come across Alan Sweat or anybody proclaiming that this is like, there's never been a witness report that said, this is the guy. Like he stood up in front of everybody and proclaimed it like that.
Yeah. I mean, somebody walked this boy in a sport coat up to police officer Alan Sweat, who was standing directly in front of the school book depository, and proclaimed, quote, and I quote, here is the man that had done the shooting. I never heard anything about that.
Yeah, that sounds apocryphal to me. I don't believe that. I'm sorry.
The more I think about it, you know what this might be?
Huh?
This might be somebody that brought Amos Ewins up to the police officer, and he said, here is a boy that saw the shooting or something.
And it got changed into here's the guy who did the shoot, which that's totally possible. That's totally possible that it could change from did the shooting to
because I remember somebody took Amos Ewins up to the cops and it was like, this boy's seen the shooter.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that makes sense. Now that could that could conform with some of the evidence I've seen. Because that makes a lot of sense. If you saw it, he'd be brought as a witness. It happens, unfortunately, in most of these major cases, with the RFK case, like the polka dot dress girl. That's actually a combination of women. Like I went through and I followed all these timelines and all these witness theories, and you see this polka dot dress girl doing all these things that 6 different women did. But when you overlay all of them on top of each other, there she is. So there were women dressed in polka dot dresses who did the things that were all attributed to one person, but it wasn't just one person. It was actually about 5 or 6 different people that did it in front of different people. And then the stories got spread around and got mixed together. And like you're showing us right now, here's where we end up until we actually parse through each one.
I had last night, Carmine. 6 women out in a heap.
Nice.
Yeah. Moving on to position. This is our last position.
Right after you said that, which is hilarious. But yes, moving on.
And this is at 100 North Houston Street, folks. And this is at 12:18 p.m., a man dressed in green fatigues began screaming and fell to the ground, simulating an epileptic fit. Almost everyone in the area was aware of this incident and testified to the fact, including the Rowlands, who were directly across the street from the position of the occurrence. An ambulance picked the man up, but a squad car and police were also sent to Parkland after the ambulance arrived there. The actual arrest and detention of this man may have been witnessed by Garland Slack, who we know, I think that's from the shooting range, right? But I believe he was also a Houston Street witness. Garland Slack and his wife, I forget what her name was, but I think they own like one of the shooting ranges that Oswald claimed to be at.
I'm not sure.
After the shooting, Slack said he observed the police take a young airman into custody through the entrance of the Dallas County Sheriff's Office. Slack was not asked about this incident when he was questioned by the commission, which is interesting. This is something that Garrison pointed out in his Playboy magazine interview on page 166. So there was the epileptic fit thing. I believe the guy's been identified, right?
Yeah, Jerry Belknap.
Jerry Belknap, yeah. But he's also saying that Garland Slack witnessed a young, quote, airman. So somebody obviously in some kind of a armed services uniform was taken into custody and walked through the entrance of the Dallas County Sheriff's offices. which I had not heard before. So that's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't have a huge background on him, but I just knew the name because I remember when who was it, like Newsweek or another paper was trying to trash Garrison's JFK, the Oliver Stone film.
Right.
And though people might, but that's in there. So, and they wanted to identify, they wanted to say, well, no, his name was Jerry Belknap and he was having an epileptic seizure.
It's still suspect to happen right there 10 minutes before the president's coming through. I mean, is it meant to, divert attention or what?
Draw
you know what I mean?
Resources.
If you get everybody looking at, especially back then, no cell phones, no, nothing like that, and you have a guy having an epileptic fit in front of hundreds of people, of course, everybody's going to be concerned about him, wondering what's going on while, the assassin is climbing in through the back entrance of the school book depository and making his way, whatever the case may be. Like just hey, it's an attention divert. Is it suspect? I don't know. Could it be? Yeah,
Yeah, and Rob, just to follow up, Garland Slack was the person that the Oswald at the shooting range allegedly shot at his target, and he was also present on Houston Street, I believe. And
yes,
that goes back to the Genberling report dated December 10th, 63. I haven't looked into the documents. I just did a quick search.
I have all these loose little nuggets of information all in my brain. It's just hard to sew them together sometimes, It's been so long, you hear shit along the way, and it's like, wait a minute, Garland Slack, that name sounds familiar. Shooting range, also Houston Street witness. Yeah, that makes sense.
You were right.
Hey,
yeah, I know. What a great witness! He misidentified Oswald.
A broken watch is right twice a day.
Exactly. It's like,
anyway,
hopefully they didn't take any of his word for up close identification because he couldn't really identify someone a few feet away from him.
So that's about all I had on that. So I just wanted to jump in there and kick it off with some entertaining supposition before we get into what Carmine is going to be talking to us here about this evening. And for people that don't know, Carmine will be speaking this year at the Lancer Conference, and it is not too late, folks. If you haven't already, go down in the description to this very show. There's a link. You can click on that link and use our code Gunman10 to save yourself 10% off of any ticket package, right? Whether you can go to Dallas in person, walking off the street, if you're sitting at your house in Bend, Oregon, you can watch and stream what is going on down there. And like I said, our code is good on any ticket package that's streaming, in person, banquet, any of that good stuff. And I believe Joe is throwing up the schedule. Joe, if you want to go through the schedule real quick so we can find out when Larry Flores presenting at 6 p.m. on Friday.
No, we had some schedule changes, as of course there always is, leading up to a conference. After the Remembrance and the D. Plaza activities on 12:30 p.m. Dallas time.
After the Judy and Beverly show.
Yes. Yes,
now apparently it's not just JVB. They've also got to worry about some of the QAnon people decide to show up because they think that,
I hope they do.
The reappearance is going to happen again, which is like,
JFK Jr. is going to show up.
Guys, come on, guys.
You give us all a bad name, but I support Mike Swanson. I know a friend of all three of us here is going to be talking about JFK plot, target Cuba or Vietnam, which will be really good. Sarah Jordan Heinz will be talking virtually about Dorothy Kilgallen, Brian Edwards, Casey Quinlan, and then back to back Tippett presentations with Matt Dowett. Did I say that right this time?
No. It's real simple, Joe. Doubt it. I doubt it.
Doubt it. Oh, doubt it. God,
it's real simple.
Why didn't you say that to me before?
I've been saying it for fucking months. Doubt it.
Not with that analogy.
Well, I didn't know I was teaching kindergarten.
Yeah.
Doubt it.
That's what I am.
I don't know where you get DeWitt from, but yes, doubt it.
Yes, and Janet Groden, which I think she was going to be doing.
Do
it. I think Janet was going to be presenting.
Matt didn't do it. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
It's okay. I think Janet was going to be presenting on Sunday night.
That doubts it.
But has been moved to Friday night, which will be interesting. So
Janet who?
More. Janet Groden.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did I say that? Saturday, it's getting kicked off early. Andy Keel, 8 a.m. Dick Russell, Will O'Halloran.
Who's Andy Keel?
Topic TBA.
Never heard of him. Dirty Dick Russell.
Yeah.
Big Willie O'Halloran.
Yep. I'll have to see if my breakfast invitation from Fred Litwin is still active pre the Dick Russell interview. We had him on about a month ago, Carmine.
I wrote a response to one of Fred's prior
articles
back in the day.
I'm sure Fred doesn't miss Dick. Speak. Sorry, did I not continue my sentence there for a second? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carmine.
I talked to Rob and Joe about this, and like I said earlier about Steve Rowe, I'm more than willing to listen to other people from the other side, because sometimes they actually can show us a weakness in the case that some people have, or they can show us that we might have been incorrect about something, just as they should listen to our side, which I know that is much more difficult sometimes for them to do. Because
did
the same
you see
thing
Fred on the show recently?
I haven't caught that one.
He inserted mouth, or I'm sorry, he opened mouth, inserted foot very early in the show, Carmine, when he said David Ferry was a good guy.
Hoofa. Wow, yeah, he did not look into any of the stuff we've talked about before with that. Like I found the underage sex cult he was trying to form when he was in New Orleans. He was trying to recruit.
This is his defense. Well, the age of consent is 16 in Canada. I said, well, what's that have to do with New Orleans?
Okay. I'm by no means a PR person, but when you try to defend the moral sanctity of David Ferry, you got some problems. If you've actually see what chances are, and this was my question with Fred in the past, why I wrote that rebuttal. If you haven't looked at the evidence, you probably shouldn't talk about it. And it's apparent Fred hasn't looked at the evidence.
He's seen it. He's had to have seen all this shit. I mean, it's
not hard. Oh no, man. Come on, really? I think it happens on both sides. I really do. I think there are people that read so far, and they're good.
I think he interviewed Boboff in like 2021, right? The kid that went with Ferry on the skating rink trip or whatever, right? That weekend.
Yeah.
And Boboff in the interview says that Ferry was a great guy. Like I'm sure some of the people that Jeffrey Dahmer didn't kill.
Oh yeah, or what's his name?
He was a great guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The CIA source / Cuban exile that Garrison kept trying to interview. Why can't I remember his name? He was in the DRE. He was the one that Oswald tried to get. Carlos Bringuier. So Bringuier was getting Ferry out of jail and convincing parents of children that he had molested to not press charges. That's the sort of person David Ferry was. So that Litwin, I mean, I guarantee he didn't read everything. He read what the government said about Ferry. He read that he has in his mind that everybody who believes that there was a conspiracy is wrong. So now David Ferry has to be a good person and he has to, exonerate him. But yeah, that's that's just a whole nother of it. I mean, just that you go down that path. Do you really think you're going to win that argument with any rational person?
But just like you said, Carmine, people ask me, well, why the hell you have Fred Litwin on your show? This is exactly why I have Fred Litwin on my show.
Yeah. Show the weakness of the other side's argument sometimes.
Yeah. And so you can see exactly what they believe.
Yeah.
Now, in his new book, he has 12 chapters of where he, busts up these myths surrounding the Kennedy assassination. Like I told Joe.
Yeah. Well, and he's got his echo, his mirror image on the other side in Judith Ferry Baker, who tried to make David Ferry into a good person.
Yeah.
So it's something that bridges both sides. There's uninformed people trying to tell us how to think. Is essentially what the problem is.
Even if he gets 1 out of 12 of those myths busted,
yeah,
it's worth hearing him out.
Yeah, yeah. If there could
the other stuff is just icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, that he got. I can't believe. Maybe it's just because I've read those files, and I know you've read those files. I don't understand how a rational person thought they could win that argument. That David Ferry is a monster. David Ferry had to be bailed out by Bernier multiple times. He had to be bailed out by Bannister multiple times.
His teenage kids would run away from home to Ferry.
Yeah,
because
he'd lure kids with drugs and porn.
Yeah, it's called grooming.
Yeah, he was a monster. And anytime Fred, please let me extend this invitation. Anytime Fred would like to debate me on your show about David Ferry and what kind of a person he was, you let me know. Ooh. Because I'll bring all of his cult files and all the ways he tried to get underage people to do what he wanted. He's not a good guy. You might want to amend that.
That's a good show topic idea. I'm down.
Yeah, good or bad. I will be representing the against.
Yeah. And I don't doubt that he was complicated, that he was an intellectual, that he did do certain good things, whether it was give some young kids that maybe had no home life, like a start with Civil Air Patrol, whatever. I'm not saying.
But see, that's the thing, though, is that as soon as you look at all the later stuff, as soon as you see that he was, I mean, it was such a twisted name too. It was like omnipotence or something like that. Just some sort of phallic reference was the name of his little cult that he wanted to set up. So it's like when you look at what it all led to, and you look at what he was really doing, and then you look that he used to be an advisor for youth groups. I don't think he was just there to help the youth. I think there might have been other motivations why he was running Oswald's Civil Air Patrol unit.
Yeah, but I think Joe's point is, he could have been a good guy in some people's eyes that didn't have all the same
facts, who didn't know everything. Yeah,
or
experience
he could have done,
with him.
Yeah,
could have done good things, right?
Like, just like Sally said, Ted Bundy worked at a suicide hotline and saved people's lives. Well, he also would take them out, kill them, and like necrophilia type stuff. You know what I mean? Like monsters.
Yeah, yeah.
But the person whose life he saved on the suicide hotline probably thought he was a nice guy.
Well, I guess it's a question.
It's all about perspective.
It's levels of monstrosity.
But that's like saying now, with everything that we know now, that Ted Bundy was a great guy.
No, he was a talented sociopath, because even the judge thought he was a good guy who sentenced him. Like, said he felt bad that he had to sentence him to so long. So he was a talented sociopath, and so was Ferry.
Yeah, he represented himself in court. He escaped from prison twice, 2 or 3 times. I mean, dude was crazy, but
highly intelligent, all that.
With everything we know now, when you look back, you can't say that Ted Bundy was a good guy.
No,
You know?
at all.
And
Some
when you
people
look-
may have had that experience, but you can't just generalize him as a good guy now, knowing everything we know.
Yeah.
Same
Right.
applies to Fury.
And Rob, I think we talked about this briefly on our members only thing. Usually these quote groomers find themselves in these type of positions, whether it be a priest or a football coach or a civil air patrol
Cub Scout leader.
instructor. Right.
And you
exactly.
see it, unfortunately, what we're seeing in modern times too is it's not limited to men for the most part anymore. It is a wide range of people. Now, there are plenty of female teachers getting arrested still, from a decade ago, I'd say at least. The trend probably started up to now to where it's, now it's, I'm not saying it's even, but there's normal looking people. I don't understand how these
really hot looking teachers that you would be like, I wish they were my teacher, and they essayed me. Like, I'm telling you, they're all hot, and you're like, what is going on here? I see those videos and the links on Twitter. It's weird, and you're right. It's not just one side, but
it's it's just crazy how what once would have been unthinkable now it's just all these female teachers. And
those poor boys aren't looked at as victims. They're legends.
Exactly.
And they're in their own towns. They're like that's the kid that banged. Miss
Well, and then you even have cases where people they're consenting at later on anyway, but the woman who married the guy, there was one teacher who slept with the guy, got pregnant.
Oh yeah.
Kept the kid and then married him when he came of age.
Yeah, after she got out of his
what? It's like, what are you talking to? Like, that is, I'm sorry, that can never be a healthy relationship. He's got it bad.
He's hot for Tony. Great Letourneau was her name.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, that was she was the Beatles of the female teacher epidemic.
Yes. Okay, back to the schedule. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so we went on a little bit of a tangent there, and that's okay. It was a good.
See where Dirty Dick Russell got us.
At noon, you got Bob Nelson. 1 p.m., you got Paul Blow, Jeffrey Meek, and David Boylan talking about their recent kind of poll on JFK researchers and what everyone thinks. And 2:30, you have, of course, Mr. Carmine Savastano, and we'll get into a little tease of his presentation.
Hey, Carmine. What time did the Chinese man go to the dentist?
What time?
Tooth hurting.
Nice.
Sorry.
Couldn't help yourself.
Couldn't help it. You're on at 2:30.
I'm on at 2:30.
Yeah, guys, send in your super chats because this one won't be monetized for sure. I'm just kidding. 3 p.m., Gail Nix Jackson. And we had her on 2 weeks ago.
4 p.m., Doug Campbell and Joe Borelli.
Joe Borelli. Yes.
Someone to say don't pronounce yourself.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
We just had Gail on the show too, Carmine, and she was very happy to be sandwiched in between you and Joe on the schedule.
Man, Dick Russell just got to you, didn't it?
Hey, I'm all messed up, man. It's Wednesday night. What the hell's going on?
Bill Simpich is headlining at 5 p.m. And then at 7, I think there's going to be a little break after he talks, and then a banquet dinner. And I'm hoping it's because it's at the Marriott, and the Marriott's hooking up with some fire food for the banquet. And on Sunday, Gary Fannin at 9 a.m., Daniel Sheehan at 10 a.m. And I'm really looking forward to that, Carmine, because I know he's done a lot of work on Santo Trafficante.
Oh, okay.
The S-Force files. He's like that teacher that has like all those presentations.
Very smart fella.
On YouTube, yeah. Brent Holland at 11 a.m., a little lunch break. Our friend, Brad
the
Litwin.
aforementioned.
Yes. We'll be talking about the Richard Case Nagel files, and I think kind of debunking some of those.
Which we agree with him on that, Carmine, right?
Yeah, because we already discussed it, went over those files. I don't know if he's got some new ones. Hopefully he has some additional ones, but certainly the what was it? The San Jose Police Department files that I think I did a show with actually Mike Swanson on it. I did a show with you on it. I might have even done a show with Chuck on it. But essentially the entire story that most people will tell you about Richard Case Nagel did not happen as told.
Right.
And make of that what you will, make of the books that were written about it what you will. But
I mean, I think it's low hanging fruit for Litwin to pluck that.
Oh yeah, it's easy. It's easy to disprove because I mean, and I went in so far as to look into the months and months later the files of the San Jose police and other people, and Nagel never even came up with the JFK idea until months afterwards. He never said anything about JFK. He actually, and another thing a lot of people don't understand is that where he was in his life, he was broke. He was living out of his car. He had lost his family. He was desperate for money. He had tried to make a deal with some criminals, and later on, when they questioned him in jail, found out that he got shot in the chest by one of the criminals he was trying to make a deal with. So he was very desperate. So he was going to rob a bank. That's it. That's it. He was going to rob a bank with a bad plan and made a horrible escape. And that's another thing. He didn't shoot into the air and wait to get arrested. He ran away. He hopped his car, tried to get away, but a cop caught him. And then he went to jail. And the JFK stuff all evolved later on when he appeared at various people's offices shopping around.
He was in the loony bin during the time of the Garrison.
There was that portion as well. There was, another thing people don't understand about Nagel is that he had suffered a plane crash when he was in the U.S. military, when he was military intelligence.
Yeah, head injury.
And got scarred, permanent scarring and a head injury. So he was emotionally unstable, according to the files, the rest of his life.
Made a lot of promises about things he said he had and never came to fruition. So.
Yeah. And, like, for instance, one of the big sticking points that people try to say when they bring up Nagel that they've read out of some books is that he had a fake Lee Harvey Oswald ID on him. That's not true. When you actually look into it and you look at the files, it's like Lewis. It's a similar name. It's not Oswald. It's not Lee Harvey Oswald. That was all tailored and created later on to make his story sell. But in the original story, he's just a guy down on his luck who tried to rob a bank and failed. He actually tried to kill himself a couple times in prison. This isn't a mastermind. This isn't, like he's not going to go. And I mean, just the story itself, if you look at the face of it, seems unbelievable because if you're going to try to make it so that you can't be used in an assassination, you run and you hide. You don't go to a bank and shoot the ceiling and get arrested and draw attention to yourself. That's not what you do. So it's unbelievable because it is.
Yeah, and of course, I think it was in that book where it was in court, either getting arraigned or whatever, and this is, I think, a Dirty D quote or paraphrasing it. And he was like, "Oh, the cop was like, oh, you didn't really mean to shoot up that bank," and the girl was like, "You're a pretty smart cop, huh?"
Which, okay, you didn't mean to shoot up. Like, one of the things, another in the Russell version, is that he shot into the ceiling. No, if you look at the police report, he shot into the cage. He hit the ceiling.
It deflected.
But it banked and hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
But he shot into the cage. He wasn't shooting at the tellers trying to scare her, or he freaked out and just misfired.
Gun went off.
Yeah, but this was by no means planned. If he had such a great plan, how did he end up in the straits that led him to have to rob the bank? Why was he broke? Why was he living out of his car? Why he lost his family?
Hijacked the airplane. All right, real quick, Turin Horace. Sheehan said he talked to Lansdale's wife, and she confirmed that's him in the photo. Any comments? Yes. No, it's not, and that's horse shit. And it's the back of a guy's head.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard that too, Rob. Doug and I might have even talked about it recently, and I mean it's silly, but he's done other good work in a lot of different areas. So, but yeah, that one is not one I agree with.
What's up, missing 411? Welcome back. Eric and Mark from AUS said hello. I'm sorry, we don't know who that is, and fuck those guys. Thank you. And on that segue,
well, Rob, I know you said quickly. You said quickly. Let's get to the schedule, and it hasn't been quick.
But you keep making it disappear, man. Goddamn.
Well, because we're talking.
We're still on screen.
Well, not.
There was a lot to unpack.
We went on a big tangent, so I brought it down.
All right, we're back on the schedule.
Yes, 2 p.m. Yes, friend of the show, Alex Harris. 3 p.m., Larry Hancock and David Boyland. Oswald Games, the FBI, which Larry hinted, he was on here about a month ago, Carmine hinted on that presentation. That should be really interesting. 4 p.m., Robert Grodin, a defense of the Zapruder film. And 5 p.m., Paul Blow, Chokeholds is closing it out. So essentially, before we move on, you have the Judith Ferry Baker Conference. That's a joke. Everyone knows it. You have the Kappa Conference, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, just canceled their in-person and are only doing virtual. So Lancer is the only kind of conference surviving. So for people, our listeners that enjoy this topic and are as enthusiastic as we are about it, even if you want to sit on your couch Saturday or Sunday, of course, Carmine and I are probably biased. We should probably say buy a Saturday virtual ticket. So you can watch and Bill Sippich.
I mean, if you're gonna buy one,
if you're gonna buy one,
but you might as well just buy one for the whole conference so you can see everything.
Sure.
Al is sitting there just like Al Bundy with one hand watching.
But everyone we know at Lancer is great. We've had a couple of them on. Kenneth, his wife, or we haven't had Gabby on. We've had Kenneth on, and conferences are maybe a little bit of a dying breed. Rob and I talked about this in our members only last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. But if there is a conference left to support, it's Lancer. It's good people. So if you can, buy a virtual ticket, even if it's for one day only, that helps out, and it helps support the people that work hard towards researching this topic. Not that we particularly are making any money off of it, but it gives people like us a voice, and it's good shit. So
thank you, Paula. You rock. We appreciate it.
I'm done now, Rob.
Yes, your Uber has just gave us a very
yes
super.
And thank you, Paula Jane. She is picking me up tomorrow in about 16, 17 hours from the airport in Dallas.
You hope.
She said, I hope. And she said, I'm not a serial killer. And I said, even if you were, I'd probably still take the ride.
Paula is a nice lady.
Yeah, she's a long-term listener, a long-time listener.
I'm saying that in the same vein as Ferry was a good guy.
Well, if I disappear and I don't show up for Friday's live, Paula might not be a good lady. But
if Paula has your laptop Friday night, we know something happened.
You see it pop up. It's like Paula minus $5.
Oh Lord. Well, fortunately, they cannot subtract once they have. Unless she holds up Joe for her money back tomorrow. But anyway, let's segue awkwardly into a discussion about some recent events that are very disturbing. It's something we looked into here on the show all the time, and that's political assassinations. And of course, we had a couple of attempts recently with the whole Trump thing, and we're going to take a look at how historically some things just don't change. We'll just say that. So, Carmine, if you would please, if you lead us into a journey to the dark side.
So these are a few things that I discuss I'm going to be discussing my Lancer speech more at length, but I also try to include some different things too, so we can have, our own
thing
conversation about it as well.
Close enough.
I'll start with, one of the things we talked about earlier is we saw the repetition of history with the attack on Donald Trump if you put it in line with other political attacks that have happened in the past. And one of the repetitions, unfortunately, is conspiracies. There are going to be conspiracies. There are going to be people who have unreliable ideas that they're going to try to push to others because they can make money or they can manipulate them or for whatever reason. And that's on both sides. There will be people who say every question is a conspiracy, you shouldn't ask anything, which is not true. And there will be people who say everything's a conspiracy, which is also not true. But what I wanted to focus on were just a couple of questions I think that are reasonable. And I've looked at the preliminary congressional reports by the Homeland Security Committee that's investigating this so far, and by the FBI. And there's a couple of questions that I think are valid to ask. And, people are going to say, oh, it's too early, we don't know enough. Well, I don't think it's too early to ask these couple of questions, just because I think that they're fairly logical.
Agencies investigate themselves.
Yeah, fairly logical, and both of these questions have been brought up by members of Congress. So they might not have the same take that I do on them, but they have asked and have been given no answer, and I find that unacceptable. We have to have answers, especially, these are the latest attempts. So this is the best they had to offer, is what we've experienced in the last two attempts. So my question regarding the Butler, Pennsylvania crime scene is the first one. And this is a question that Louisiana Congressman, interesting too, how it out. What is it about Louisiana? But a Louisiana Congressman, Clay Higgins, voiced a significant issue regarding the earlier attack by Thomas Matthew Crooks on Donald Trump this year. In historical style, with its usual disregard for non-executive branch leadership, Higgins was questioning the FBI's conduct because the FBI turned over the Butler crime scene in 3 days to its owners, despite announced congressional investigations. The Bureau had its chosen answers, and similar to past actions in the Kennedy case, they prevented other independent assessments. The FBI cannot fully answer questions about its treatment of the Kennedy crime scene 6 decades later, but it appears they believed 3 days was enough to fully examine the Pennsylvania crime scene and gather all useful evidence. 3 days. Under regular circumstances, this is within the usual time frame recommended to release a crime scene by some Department of Justice memos and guides. I actually looked at the DOJ guide, and it is legal, and it is okay to release a regular crime scene in 3 days. But that's the key word, a regular crime scene. This is a political assassination crime scene. You might want to take the week. So, so this was no regular crime scene, as Rob just said, and it's a security failure of such magnitude, it should have been preserved for multiple evidentiary reviews. Higgins himself states in a preliminary report to Congress, quote, "The FBI does not exist in a vacuum. They had to know releasing the J13 crime scene would injure the immediate observation of any following investigation." So there's my question. Why? Same question the congressman has. Why did they have the crime scene essentially scrubbed in 3 days? Was it to protect the Secret Service? Because, their failures are all over the place. Was it to protect themselves? Because they had failed to cover the area? Maybe one of their agents? But there has to be a reason, and that isn't...
It's like, okay, you got one government agency covering for another.
When Congress is going to investigate. So to me, it seems like it's executive branch covering for executive branch, so that the congressional branch doesn't find out how absolutely a mess the crime scene was.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think we even showed this, Joe, on the show, and one of the ones right after the Butler thing, where you have a news guy, and this was within the week, standing on top of the roof. Okay,
remember what happened the weekend of JFK's assassination? Reporters got in to the depository and moved boxes around so they could take. I swear, it's like it is literally lining up where the same things keep happening.
You know, like you say, you got a reporter right up there on top of the blood stain that they half-ass hosed off.
Yeah, they hosed
and
off.
He's like, the guy down there in the field was right where Trump was standing, where my cameraman is, you know, and I'm up here, and this is how far away it was. And this was within a couple days of it happening. I'm like, how is this guy up there already? That I guess the crime scene had already been released at this point.
3 days.
But yeah, it's mind-boggling, especially with how many questions.
And with announced congressional investigation, that's what gets me. That's another just.
Well, yeah,
that is a page out of the Hoover book. You are literally pulling a page out of the Hoover book to say, okay, well, Congress is going to investigate. Can't let that happen.
Because you have the Secret Service blaming it on Homeland Security, who's blaming it on the local police.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like.
So let's just, and you know what? We saw this happen before in other cases. So let's just blitz the crime scene, and then nobody can find out anything. And then we'll just
we have a car in a van with a dead guy and another guy arrested who just happened to look pretty damn identical to each other. So what the hell is going on here? And, you know, there's a lot to investigate. You have all these witnesses that need to be interviewed. You know, people were killed there. You need to figure out, you know, ballistics, bullet trajectories, you know, the whole 9 yards. It seems like.
Yeah, you want to preserve that area.
Blood splatter analysis for sure.
Yeah, all the forensics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, it was funny because Rob and I did that kind of quick reaction show. I think it was 48 hours after, and we had the video, right, of the shot sequence, and we were trying to determine how many shots they were. And Carmine, I don't know if you probably didn't see it. Do you think we got the shot sequence right, being able to slow down and back up the video? Were we even close to it?
I'm sure you probably got it at least as well as the FBI or better. Well, if you actually use the video to determine each of the shots,
well, we did use the video.
Had audio, thankfully.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the video had audio.
Well, and I think that's the big difference between the two time periods. Why we are so much more informed now is because you have video and audio of almost everything that happened that day. Where in JFK's time, you have to look at grainy pictures and try to piece together documents. Yeah. With this, you have it live.
Yeah, and I think there was the first burst, which was 3 shots on Butler. I think there was a second one that was 5 shots. The second burst, then the local snipers. This guy had kind of identified the shooter and had shot at him almost right in the middle of his second burst, but hit his gun. Right, which gave kind of blew back, gave some shrapnel to his face. And then the guy, you know, Crooks kind of went down in that little kind of niche he was in that on the ceiling. And then he kind of popped back up. And that's when the Secret Service team, the Hercules team, I believe it was called, did that final shot. And we had that right because you heard after everyone, even after the Secret Service agents were on Trump, you heard that and it sounded different than any other shot. And that was a Secret Service kill shot. So there's, 10 shots total, 2 being returned, 8 being.
That's roughly what I've heard most of the counts, either 9 or 10 is what people.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because to bring it back to your first point you made, that's what Rob and I tried to do. What can we learn about this attempt in real time to relate it to the JFK assassination? And we heard numerous, I think 2 or 3 different people right in the direct aftermath that said the shots came from the water tower, right? That was, I guess, Secret Service didn't have anyone there. They could have. People said they should have. And so it was this whole thing for a few days. It was retweeted on Twitter or X, and you thought there was a second gunman in the water tower because there were these 2 or 3 witnesses that in the direct aftermath said they heard things coming from the water tower. And in Dealey Plaza, you hear 3 shots, 4 shots, 5 shots. And honestly, the whole thing taught me in his testimony, man. You just can't rely on it. I mean,
well,
you
I
can.
think it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss on the witness.
Like when we talked to Gail, she said, Orville, her grandfather, had actually heard 4 or 5 shots, and they didn't want to hear that. It was only later that he changed it. He said, well, there was only 3 shots that day because that's what the government said there was. And that's how much he respected and trusted in his government and country, that he didn't trust his own instincts. His mind was later changed for him, or he allowed his mind to be changed by the government.
Yeah, he yielded to the
first
authority.
Was 4 or 5 shots. And that's somebody running across Dealey Plaza, running towards the limousine, and you gotta. And was he interviewed by the Warren Commission? No. So,
well, and looking back on their tactics and everything, it actually hurt them more than it helped them, because they tried to push every injury into 3 shots. It's almost impossible. It requires the magic bullet. It requires Spectre to make his claims. It requires all of those things, because they couldn't admit that there might have been a 4th and a 5th shot. If they throw those in, well, then that's how Tay got hurt. That's how the bullet bounced off the street. That's how JFK got hit a couple of times. That's how everything happened.
And with 3 shells on the 6th floor, that's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So if they don't, which is, just such. We only found 3 shells, so there can only be 3 shots. Really? What if the gunman picked one up and put it in his pocket?
What if there's 2 gunmen?
Yeah, they wanted an answer. Oswald was convenient.
What if one fell out the fucking window, Carmine?
Yeah, or rolled into a crack that got hidden in the floor. No one, there are boxes everywhere.
That floor wasn't the best, bro.
Yeah,
they were replacing.
So it's funny that it's their own theory that dooms most of their theories. It's that they had to make it 3 bullets, and it had to be just this one guy who had to do it alone.
Yep. And when you're talking about this guy, and you hear,
this guy, Crooks could actually. He's the sort of I talked about it a little bit in my speech, but Crooks is the Warren Commission's wet dream. He prepared for over a year. He practiced. Think about that for a second. Wow, that's a good thing for an assassin to do, is maybe practice once in a while. Oswald never did, but Crooks did every week for a year beforehand. He was committed to it. He looked up online stuff about Trump. He waited until it got close to his house. He staked out the site. He even sent drones to check out the area before he even went there himself with a rangefinder, which also kills me. It's like, really? A rangefinder? This isn't a shooting or a golfing convention. What the hell does he have a rangefinder for? And why wasn't it taken?
I just want to see him better through there.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, that's just basic. The average regular local cop is going to know that's not right. that should be taken away from someone before they go in a political event.
Yeah, and that person should be kicked the hell out.
Yeah, or detained. You got 4 air marshals chasing Tulsi Gabbard around to make sure she doesn't do anything wrong, but you're going to let this dude wander into a political convention with a rangefinder. So anyway,
with the AR-15 strapped to his back, and Christ,
I don't want to do exactly what I'm going to say there, but some of the things are going to answer. It's just basic security measures, that you would have a ring of protection, that you would have overlapping snipers in a circle around the area. You'd have guards in a circle around the area so no one could penetrate it. That's the only reason he got a chance to get so close to take those shots, is their failures.
They should have had a sniper on the water tower.
Yeah. And they should have had one on the ARG building or AGR building, the American Glass Research Building. Because, and another thing a lot of people don't understand is that, so Trump was having a 15,000 person event outdoors. Jill Biden in Pittsburgh was having a roughly, I think it was like 500 or 600 person indoor event. She got a counter surveillance team. He didn't.
Right.
So the
He's
resources weren't. Yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
the first lady.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
come on.
resources were not, I mean, it was all levels of failure that you can attribute to this. But to me, the big question I share with Congressman Higgins, why in the world, knowing that congressional investigations were days away, would you scrub the crime scene? And they don't have an answer. They're not going to give us an answer. We know the answer. It's because they screwed something up and they didn't want us to find out about it. And maybe in 60 years we will.
Yes. And the files are finally released.
But we're still waiting for some other stuff from the FBI from 60 years ago. So it's kind of backlogged.
And Carmine, what did you think? I've heard, I think I read it in that document, the DOJ document. The Secret Service agents were supposed to have a meeting with the local sniper teams, right? Because Trump's Secret Service detail at that time wasn't that big as a former president.
Yeah.
And they didn't attend that meeting. Therefore, they weren't on the same frequency. So when
the
local
multiple
police,
command centers.
Yeah. So when the local police realized that there was a threat and the snipers or the Hercules Secret Service snipers started to obviously realize there was something wrong with all these cops running around everywhere, and when you saw the first shot from Crooks, you see the Secret Service team completely have to like pull back and readjust, like they weren't even looking in the same area as where Crooks was.
What
is that incompetence that I'm not going to go to this meeting with the local sniper team because I'm better, because I'm Secret Service?
Well, I think that there was certainly incompetence there. The Secret Service definitely overestimated their ability to protect Trump because of the results. So they certainly a good idea. And, some people are like, well, that's unreasonable. Or that's just sexist. I'm sorry, but that small Secret Service female agent shouldn't have been there. There should have been 6'8" meat walls in front of him on all sides. There should have been big linebackers all around him and anybody, whether it was Kamala or him. Anyone they're trying to protect, you might want to try to protect. And to do that, you're going to need people bigger than the person who is speaking.
A whole lot of Henry Hills.
Yeah. Yeah, you need exactly. You need a wall of them around, and you need maybe the ballistic glass and other things, because unfortunately, I don't think we've seen the end of this. And I remember talking to Joe and Rob the first time when I said there's going to be another one. And there was. And I think, unfortunately, unless something changes, unless we have some real changes at Secret Service and the FBI doesn't try to hide evidence and we actually confront this problem as a society, because I think there's a bigger, and anyway, I'll go into the cycles in a second, but do you care if I jump to my next question?
Well, yeah, what's that?
So my next question concerns the second attempt, which Ryan Routh at the Mar-a-Lago golf course, where he tried to take a shot at Trump.
Yes, this one, I think that guy has got some questionable connections for sure.
I definitely, yeah. Well, he got the Ukrainian back. He got the Ukrainian back. He wanted to go fight in Ukraine, and he was able to somehow accrue the means to do so. But what's interesting about him, so I think there's a lot of, his background certainly is questionable. My big question, and I don't think they have an answer for it, but I'll wait to see if they can come up with one. But so, how did Routh determine with nearly half a day to plan where Trump would be present? The trip wasn't listed on Trump's public schedule and was called a last-minute change by some officials on his private schedule. So, how unlikely is the notion that Routh just happened to pick the correct location from a dozen such courses in America? Trump's got a dozen courses across the country. So he picked the right one, which is roughly an 8% chance statistically. Then he selected the right Florida golf course, one of three. He's got better odds, but not even odds. So now he's made this 8% chance pick. He's made the 1 of 3 pick. And now he somehow knows the 12-hour window Trump will appear in. How do you do that?
Somebody told him. Sounds like.
Could be.
Yeah. Do you get to Ukraine and back in these times without getting on the radar of some intelligence
security,
service?
Of course, or the intelligence services? Yeah, they're going to definitely know.
No, it'd be almost impossible to not get on their radar.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying, the intelligence services and certainly the Department of Homeland Security would know.
And this,
they're following
people to go to Ukraine.
Anybody, go into a military conflict zone. Yeah, you are definitely going on the list. They're going to know of your group. Yeah. And what kills me though, so it's a 12-hour window, right? So security failures, we can explain security failures for how long he was able to be concealed, but not how he knew to be there at the time on the right day. And the only related statement, because I actually saw the acting chief of Secret Service answer this question, the only related statement on the matter they have is they are unable to determine how the attacker was able to get there. That's it. That's the Secret Service's answer. Don't know.
He wasn't even from Florida. Wasn't he living in Hawaii or something?
He lived in North Carolina and Hawaii, both places. Okay. Yeah. And so he was states away. There was no reason for him to be there. In that, and see, what kills me is it's in that period. It is so unlikely. It is an 8% chance that he's going to guess the right one, but then that he would guess.
He didn't have a vehicle,
no, he had a vehicle. But what I'm saying is that he would be driving back because Trump. I looked at Trump's schedule before and after, and Trump was like New Jersey, Georgia, Oregon, Texas. He was all over the place. This guy couldn't have accounted for where he was going to be. And this is on Trump's private schedule. So even the Secret Service doesn't know until Trump changes it. So how the hell does he know? I really would like investigators to explain to me how this guy knows. So
either Trump's got a mole or.
Well, I think the eventual answer, it can range from unintended leak of information within official circles. I could see a security team posting on social media, like a member of the security team, or sharing information with a family member or a friend. That to me is the most non-conspiracy answer to the question, is that somebody screwed up.
Somebody put this motherfucker off.
Yeah, they put it on social media. They screwed up. They should have told somebody who or their friend to put it on social. You know what I mean?
Hanging with the golf course.
Exactly. With the amount of incompetence going on these days, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a possibility. So, but conversely, less likely, but still possible, it could have been an intentional leak to facilitate a security lapse. The same way. And then it still looks like you just made a mistake.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. No. And we just got a great comment from
Cuban exiles.
Yeah. If Cuban exile Trump would have been cooked. Yeah, I think so. And that actually kind of segues into my question. So I have a working theory, and I mean, I think Crooks was probably a lone gun.
Yeah.
And
classic example of the lone gunman, an actual lone gunman.
Probably a lone gunman. Michael, what is it?
Ryan Routh.
Ryan Routh, yeah.
But you got to think, okay, somebody could have possibly been in Crooks's ear, or kind of steering him.
Honestly, I really think Crooks went back to remember the history, because we talked about his history. I really think it was that chip on his shoulder. I think it was him getting teased, and I love that everybody came out later. They're like, "Well, he didn't get teased that much. He was thrown off the shooting team because they were afraid he was going to shoot someone." He was the worst.
He had a 10-inch dick. I mean, come on.
He was the worst shot in town. Yeah,
but he had a 10-inch dick. That makes up a lot. When people make fun of you and bully you, can say, "Yeah, okay."
You know what?
Look, what I got.
Well, and then what I'm saying though is that then, as a response to them teasing him, then he started to wear hunting clothes, which is that's just going to make it worse. So think of all the abuse this guy was getting, and then
Thank you, Perpetual Concepts. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks.
Carmine.
Appreciate a perpetual concept for the
rules. We love
nice
him.
comment.
Yeah. So I think Rouse is much more likely as I work things
that
out
there's
now.
questionable
On the limited information we have, that something is a little more sus there.
Another thing is, if you look, prosecutors have said because of all the information they've gathered on Routh for the trial, it needs to be indefinitely postponed. That's interesting.
That's what I was going to ask you. I've heard
That's
nothing.
interesting.
No,
it's been indefinitely postponed.
I've heard nothing since he was arrested.
I wonder why they'd need more time.
Except his brother was allegedly indicted.
Uncomfortable answers to questions.
Yeah.
His brother was indicted for some
Kitty
bad
porn?
crime with little kids.
Or the son. The son was his son.
Oh, his son was. Yeah. So, I mean, and that my conspiratorial mind right there goes to what are they trying to keep Rouse from saying? I haven't looked into it, but that's just
he has been isolated. And they have when I saw, I can't remember if it was, I'll find it when I send you the sources later to put up for people. I'll send you the link to it. But when I saw that, it was MSNBC or Newsweek that were talking about that they've asked for an indefinite delay. So, well, what do they mean by indefinite? How many years do you guys need to go over the evidence?
All this shit? I mean, I guess not. But
well, and I'll be happy if they can answer my question. I don't think they can do that, let alone present us with
for a speedy trial at this point, you know.
Because I mean, that's a hell of a guess. I'd like him to pick my lottery numbers.
Yeah. And even if you knew he was going to be in Florida to pick one,
how would you know where?
3 courses, right? It's still, even if you knew he was going to be in Florida, just
that's the thing too. But he's got 12 nationwide. That's what kills it for me. If it would have just been Trump had 3 golf courses and they were all in Florida, that's a 33% chance. Anybody can make a 33% chance guess. He had to make the 8% chance guess first. He had to guess where in the nation Trump was, then guess where in Florida he was, then guess that 12-hour, and the 12-hour window kills it for me, where he brought food. He knew he was going to have to be there a while. How? How could he know that? So he's not a crazy person, as they tried to paint him. He planned. He went through a lot of the steps that Crooks did, but wasn't as well placed. Didn't follow, but this seeming foreknowledge is my big question.
I don't even think he got off a shot, did he?
No, he got stopped before, and he was in a much better position than Crooks was. Like, Crooks put himself at risk by going so deep into the security perimeter. Routh was like 300 to 600 yards away or feet away from Trump.
Yeah,
and Trump was still out of range, but he was getting into range. And Routh had set up like bulletproof plates. He was hanging them on the sides of his rifle in case there was fire back at him. He was on the outside of the fence, so he wasn't actually on the grounds of the golf course. He was firing through the fence. So it's not for lack of trying. Some Secret Service guy was looking across and noticed a rifle barrel.
Yeah, and I think whatever side of the political aisle any of us land on, no one wants political assassination.
Hell no.
I think if you're a fan of this podcast, you don't want it.
Well, I think there's a number of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons, perhaps, is that this political assassination doesn't get the assassin punished. The people who get punished the most are the public. That gives the government impetus to clamp down because domestic terrorism occurred. So then anybody can be a domestic terrorist. So if you don't think you're on a list now, should a political assassination happen, trust me, we'll all be on one. Because then we can all be considered threats. We can all be considered, look at 9/11. When 9/11 happened, who was punished? Yes, they did arrest some terrorists. Yes, some terrorists went to jail. But who had to now forever live with the Department of Homeland Security, a redundant level of government we didn't need? Who has FISA courts that are secret courts that can throw us in jail for the rest of our lives with no chance of parole? all these things, the NSA has been spying on us for how many decades now? All that was our response to protect us. The government was protecting us.
Well, a lot of those things have changed, over the years since the JFK assassination of things that presidents used to do that they don't do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like once they get into office, it's like you don't even see or hear or anything from these dudes or whoever ladies.
That's always something to notice. You see, like Obama in the first term and Obama in the second term, or Bush too. Like they age, like someone's just 20 years of their life away from them.
But they're not out in public very much. There's no more motorcades, open car motorcades like there used to be. I mean, for good reason. But these things have an effect on the way that presidents conduct their business, if that's what you want to call it nowadays, where they're much more sanctioned off from the public than they used to be. Much less accessible, things like that.
Yeah. For security purposes, which I understand. And do you care? I'll go real quick into it and try to.
But they could be doing the same thing if the security was better.
Exactly.
And if they had proper precautions.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do public events.
Yeah.
It's just a question of using your resources. It's a question of, and you know what? The Secret Service, those who hear my speech will hear me get in depth about it. But let me just fire off just a few things. Like so, and I'm talking about in 2014. They were having problems. Congress is investigating them in 2014 for hundreds of complaints, and agents drunk on duty in the Netherlands who had to be sent home because they were found unconscious in hallways. Agents hiring prostitutes in Colombia when they were supposed to be getting ready to protect Obama the next day on the counter sniper team. That's just a little taste. Then you go into the agent, it's like it's one of their hobbies. I think the Secret Service's most favorite hobby is getting drunk, because at the White House, 2 agents got found crashing a car into White House grounds because they got drunk while they were supposed to be patrolling the place. Then you have agents in 2022 being given gifts by foreigners who eventually got arrested because they were foreign assets, likely of other governments, because they're giving them iPhones and penthouse apartment suites and all sorts of gifts. Well, yeah, that's called an intelligence operation if you want to compromise people. So, I mean, the Secret Service, it's just been a string of failures that has been going on since the 60s. It started with not firing James Rowley after John Kennedy died. That nothing happened after they lost a president to anybody is the problem. And it's continued to spiral for decades till now. Where we are is now finally we might actually hold some of them accountable. Like we had the head of the Secret Service, she stepped down, and that's admirable that she stepped down, but if she hadn't been, she should have been fired, and so should all the other lead agents. Anybody that had anything to do with the structure of the security those days should be fired. And that's what's gonna, I'm sorry,
you say she resigned, but I think
she knew the writing on the wall. She knew it was gonna yeah, or
you can resign. Resignation. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a feeling. She would have been fired anyway. That's another interesting thing too. Did you know that the only 2 chiefs of Secret Service that have ever resigned were both women? No men have ever been fired or resigned. Yeah, Julia Pearson in 2014 when they screwed up. That was the Columbia prostitute scandal, and then this time.
In their defense, it could be a very boring ass job, because you got to figure 99.9% of the time ain't nothing happening.
You're studying stuff and watching stuff. Yeah.
It's the 0.1% of the time when the shit goes down and you ain't ready for it, or you're not expecting it, and it happens, and
Well, and like Joe said earlier, the problem is it's so many layers over the years that have, like, they don't, at Butler, they had 2 different command centers. Secret Service had their own command center, and then local police had a command center. So everything, instead of going through one chain of command, had to go through 2, which is why it took longer for everybody to do everything, because people were having to do the same thing. Like one guy would text, and then he texted the next guy, who would then call the next guy, who would. It's like
It's
streamlining.
2024. You can't all be on the same comms. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, or how about just go back to old-fashioned radio? A couple of CB radios would have probably been pretty handy.
Really?
I mean, if you want to, there's all sorts of easy, fixes for that. Anyway, so okay, if you don't, I'll jump into. I did one of the things I was talking to Joe and Rob off air earlier. One of the things I'm going to present is what I'm terming cycles of political violence, because I think that there's a macro picture to all of this that many might not have considered, and that's that modern spans of time are marked by domestic political attacks on presidents or presidential candidates. But I believe that the JFK case isn't just important, because of it's not just important because of the events of the JFK case. It's also important because I believe that it started the first modern cycle of political violence. And so what do I mean by that? So I would say a cycle is divided by a period of at least 4 years or more passing between violent incidents. I'm not including public threats by varying people who never undertake a proven attack, because we've all heard of lots of people making threats but never doing anything, or foreign operations because they're outside forces that we have to foil and can't necessarily control domestically. And I'm focusing on domestic aspects of renewed political violence that we have observed not just recently, but in the last 60 years. So the JFK case would be the beginning of the first modern cycle of political violence. So that cycle begins in 1963 with JFK's death and ceases with Robert F. Kennedy's assassination in Los Angeles in mid-1968. 2 fatal incidents within 5 years have altered the course of political history. And amongst the presidency of Lyndon Johnson, the attacks ended. A second violent cycle began during 1972 among Richard Nixon's second term. Nixon was targeted once, candidate George Wallace was shot, Gerald Ford faced 3 attempts on his life, and both Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan would each be attacked once. 7 incidents within a mere 9 years had occurred. This new period of attacks nearly doubled in length, and the second cycle includes over triple the number of previous incidents. During the tenure of George H.W. Bush, the cycle ends again and remains quiet until 1994. A third cycle begins with assailants targeting Bill Clinton 3 times and George W. Bush twice. This period notes a 2-year expansion of the cycle's duration. Greater attempts focus on less targets, but contains less overall attempts. A fourth cycle of political violence began during 2011 amid the presidency of Barack Obama and extended into the first Trump administration. They used means ranging from firing shots at the White House to rice-and-filled letters. Obama would be targeted 5 times, and Donald Trump was targeted 3 times by 2020. Just 3 years later, the same cycle reignites with attacks on Donald Trump in Pennsylvania and Florida. We are presently in the 12th year of the 4th cycle, and 2 people have been attacked 10 times. The number of people targeted has remained consistent at 2, but the rate of violent incidents has doubled. If the 2-year increase in duration present in the last 2 cycles remains consistent, this cycle may end during 2025. That's my thesis. I think if you look over time, it holds pretty consistent. It's a 2-year increase.
End with a bang in 2025.
Exactly. I'm hoping that it'll be more averted attempts.
Yeah.
Because, like we said, But when you think, what do you guys think of that? Do you think it sounds reasonable? And I'm, just trying to give a longer range.
When you first said it, I was thinking in my head, okay, well, yeah, first off is the 60s. I mean, we're talking about presidential assassination, but you have to take it when you're talking political.
Oh yeah,
you got to include Martin Luther King,
MLK, yep,
and God knows how many, since then. I mean, you could even include John Lennon if you wanted to.
As far as that's why, I knew there'd be too many, so I just tried to keep it just but even with presidential, there's still 24.
Right, which is crazy. When you think about it,
that we've had and those are just the most proven attempts. Like, I mean, if you want to count all the threats, then you're hundreds and hundreds. But I mean, like with rice-and-filled letter, let me just save some idiots some time. You're not going to get a letter to a president that hasn't gone through so much security that they will detect your stupid poison.
I'm going to open this guy's envelope.
Exactly.
Oh!
It isn't like fan mail in the 60s. You're not going to actually get your letter to the person it's intended for. It's going to be like, for instance, I sent that letter that I told you guys about to the Defense Intelligence Agency because I wanted an answer about them destroying all those JFK files. And it got stamped and looked at and checked by security and signed off. Yeah, what do you guys do? Anyway, but those do count, in my opinion, because they actually did put the poison in the letter. They went and mailed it. They actually took the time and attempted to do, it wasn't going to work. But most people don't even know that. They don't know that Barack Obama or Donald Trump got sent rice and filled letters. But I mean,
yeah. And
they have no idea.
And like Deco was saying, our country is insane, but I don't think our country is alone in this. I'm sure this happens in other countries as well.
Oh yeah. It's
our country's not alone in this insanity, for sure.
Yeah, the former president of Japan, Shinzo Abe.
Shinzo Abe,
a couple years ago, and
it certainly happens in other countries, but I don't know if it happens. I think in our country it happens in
spurts.
Yeah, spurts, I guess, or just in these sets. These sets which the only thing I think that kind of puzzles me about this is that the attempts were just with JFK and RK, it was just 2 that turned to 7, but back to 5. So it is possible to have less attempts. It is possible to lower the temperature, but I think all these things happen because of where we are politically during these times. In the 60s, like you said, it was very tumultuous, wars, and people calling themselves good and evil, and that's at the height of the civil rights debate. And then in the 70s, you got Watergate, and then you've got Vietnam still going on, finally ending, and then you had Carter with huge inflation and people having to line up to get gas. And then with Reagan, the country was still suffering from the Iran-Contra scandal and all the other. Yeah. It's these political events do trigger the public, and depending where the public is. And right now I'd say it's at its most infuriated is why I think the numbers add up as they do. Like the numbers doubled, which is crazy from Clinton and Bush, who by most corners had a lot of people didn't care for them. Bush was called a Nazi. They used to burn the effigies of Bush for the Iraq War and warmonger, and that's what made me laugh so much about the current election. As soon as you accept the endorsement of Dick Cheney, no matter who you are, no matter what side you're on, you lose. As soon as you accept the endorsement of a warmongering cog that's been in the machine since the Nixon administration, you lose.
And I think when you talk about like the Reagan assassination, I think attempt, that was a Secret Service failure as well. Yeah. I mean, yes, they caught the guy. Yes, Reagan lived, but he was shot.
They shot him. Yeah.
He could have been killed easily. I mean, another guy was, paralyzed, and I think another guy did lose his life, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, no, he was paralyzed. That started the Brady bill because Bill Brady got shot.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was another guy that got shot and killed.
I don't believe so, but I have to look. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe not. But I still view that as the Secret Service failure.
Exactly. And they should too, but they don't. That's the big problem that I think the government needs to face.
If the president gets shot, like literally, that's a failure
and should be fired. If you're at work and you're a waitress and you drop a plate and it lands on somebody and messes up their clothes and they threaten to sue the owner and he fires you for that, you know what? He's got a reason.
The chances of it happening again go way up.
Yeah. So if we're going and if we're going to hold people who serve food to that standard, I'd say the people who are supposed to protect our leaders should be held to the same standard. Just basic competence. Know how to do your job a little, please.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And what, unfortunately, like I said, 2025 is, I think, the earliest we're going to see a pause. Hopefully, a nice long pause. I wouldn't mind. But I I don't have a lot of hope that it's going to stop until we actually, as a society, try to come together, both sides, all sides, and try to look at this as it's in all of our best interest. What kills me too is that politicians and celebrities should have been talking about this a long time ago, because they're usually the ones targeted. So they might want to think about this a little.
Carmine, we will finally have the first AI president.
Oh, geez. The first AI president.
I'm just saying, you never know, dude. I mean, Elon Musk is rolling out the first robot Optimus. He could decide, one of these Optimus could decide to run for president, and if he says the right thing, he might get elected. I mean, who the hell knows?
Well, it wouldn't be the first empty suit to hold the office.
No.
Robots are people too. They have rights.
Robot rights.
Rights.
Robo rights.
I mean, you can see all this coming down the pike. I mean,
what frightens me is the
if they kill one, they can just take out his chip and put it in another one.
Yeah, going off topic here, but I saw something that just frightened me the other day, where I was looking at like people now like needing psychiatric help and like having issues over AI mates, like AI boyfriends and girlfriends. Like they're foregoing having a real boyfriend or girlfriend and getting an AI one so that they can just interact with it.
Well, I can definitely see the upside of having a robot, okay, who can clean your house for you, who can cook your meals for you, who can go to the store for you, who can walk your dog for you. Those are crazy benefits. And if they can have a conversation with you, much like a human can, then the need for actual human companionship goes way down.
Which is horrible for our society.
Horrible.
It's I agree with you. The utility of a robot to do that sounds great, and hopefully we can all have one of those in our house. But it certainly doesn't replace the real need for interaction. And it's like what's crazy is like it's a company that owns this thing, right? So this company knows everything private you're saying to this AI bot. And is telling you what you want to hear back to just get you to subscribe to, like you're renting your AI boyfriend or girlfriend forever. It's a subscription, basically.
Well, you can buy the thing for $20,000, but then of course I'm sure you got to subscribe to like Amazon Prime or Alexa or whatever, to keep the program running or whatever. But I can see people, hey, watch Junior there for I got to run to the gym, watch the kid, babysit the kid.
Was it in, I can't remember her name, but the maid in the Jetsons.
Yeah.
The robot.
I mean, you can see these things are going to happen in the future. And if these robots get life-like enough to have male and female parts as well, which on some of these Japanese robots, they do have this stuff. Where guys won't need a woman and women won't need a guy anymore
until they get hacked. Then they won't need anything.
Until something gets stuck on you and you have to go to the hospital because into this thing.
Oh man, yeah. You can just imagine. Could you imagine malwares? Like
that gives viruses a whole new
people, or just you don't think there's hackers out? Yeah, you don't think there's hackers out there that are going to try to like get into the camera in these things so they can tape you and try to blackmail?
Yeah,
like, of course they're going to do all that.
Yeah, you can see it all coming down the pipe.
Yeah, they try to do it with regular stuff already. They're trying to blackmail people with stuff on their phone. Of course they're gonna. Yeah, that's just a bad idea, man. Some things should be analog. Some things.
I'm telling you, Carmine, it's coming.
Oh, I know. No, I believe you. Yeah, there's going to be a ton of people.
David Ferris come. It will be flying. It will be coming. All of it.
Such a bad idea, man. Such a bad idea.
But Optimus was a good guy.
Oof. Skynet. Don't you ever want to date Skynet?
Yeah, we're getting there.
But I mean, you could see the you can see why people would want to engage in these fake relationships than a real relationship, because there's no fighting, and it's, you know, you can talk. I mean, half of being a human is conversation. You know, you want to be able to have conversations with people. If you're not talking to anybody, it's a really lonely existence. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I could understand why they'd want to use it, and I could even understand like using them therapeutically for people, you know,
right,
who maybe have been in isolation a long time or have problems dealing with other people, or people who are like highly autistic who might need it to train themselves. Like as a training model or method, sure, there's all sorts of good applications, but there's all these horrible ones. And those are usually the ones people choose, unfortunately. It's like the internet. The internet started out as a DARPA project that was going to change everything. We're all going to be interconnected. We're all going to be exchanging information, using it for the best of purposes. And what is a majority of it used for? Porn. So, unfortunately...
Which is, I fear, many of these robots are going to be used for.
And what, unfortunately, and porn is actually second to the dark web, so even worse. I mean,
let's just hope Rosie the robot does not do Kegel exercises.
So yeah, have you ever heard the something I think that's interesting? You ever heard the dead internet theory?
What's that?
The dead internet theory is that the internet pretty much is already dead, that most of us on here is only about 10% of the entire internet is active. Most of it is just bots and the dark web and porn in the background. While the rest of us, just a little bit of us, keep talking that we're actually human. Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it'll get there eventually if it isn't already there.
I can't for the life of me figure out this whole YT algorithm thing going on here. I mean, it's just it doesn't make any sense. And when you see who shows up, who interacts, combine that with, you know, the 1,000 or so bots that, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, there are every day. I'm sure.
Views and subscribers, and I'm sure Twitter's full of them as well. I'm sure there's a ton of fake Facebook profiles out there and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Crazy stuff. That's like out of the movies. Like, dude, I would tell this little story and then we'll wrap it up. I can't believe we've already been talking 2 hours. I mean, god damn, time flies.
When you're having fun.
I know. I was listening to this podcast and there was an actor. I can't remember his name. I think it's something Libro or something, but he's not like a famous actor. He's just like a character actor. He's been in a couple TV shows, maybe a couple of movies, very bit parts. But something happened to him like during the pandemic where he got a message on Instagram from a Chinese what's the PLA over there? People's Liberation Army? Dissident?
Yeah, People's Liberation Army. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was approached, and what was weird to me is that he says the reason that they approached him, and this is what they said in their message to him, the reason why we reached out to you is because we thought you might, and this is weird, he said he was in a car one day in New York with his father, and they were going somewhere, and they drove by Harvey Weinstein's house in New York. And they just pointed it out. You know, the guy was like, hey, that's where Harvey Weinstein lives, you know, blah, blah, blah. Oh, really? It's a nice house, you know, blah, 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 bullshitting. And they just kept going on. They were having this conversation in their car, a guy and his father. Okay. This was 4 years later. This Chinese PLA dissident reaches out to this guy on Instagram and says, yeah, I heard you. Do you know Harvey Weinstein? We heard you and your father having a conversation about it. And the guy was thinking, he's like, what the fuck is going on here? That was 4 years ago. How in the actual hell could somebody from China know that I had this conversation in my car with my dad 4 years ago?
Was he on TikTok? That's one way.
This is how they explained it, that everything you do, if you're around an electronic device, is recording everything you do and say, and it goes into a vast data bank.
I believe it started with Alexa because back in the day they had to admit it because they got sued, and it's 6 seconds roughly.
Yeah,
So
but this
every
is
time-
car radios. This is
yeah.
cell phones. This is televisions in your house.
But the way that they've managed to make deals with the government is that if you say something, the first 6 seconds of whatever you say, or the first 6 seconds after you're done talking, it can listen to, and then it can then send that to them so they can program it and then start to build
So
a profile.
if they somehow, the Chinese somehow hacked this NSA database and could search for keywords, like Harvey Weinstein, and they hear this guy talking about him, think he might know him, and then they look him up. Oh, he's an actor. Well, he might have an in with this guy. Let's reach out to him and see what we can get him to do. And they were trying to get him to meet with these billionaire spies and all this kind of crazy shit. But they were telling him, hey, you're standing in your kitchen right now. You're wearing blue jeans and a white T-shirt with red shoes on. And he was like, there was no cameras in his kitchen. His cell phone was in his pocket. The only thing in his kitchen is a turned off television.
But is it turned off? I mean, you've heard of all the reports when those when they first started releasing the new TVs, companies got sued because they were doing the same thing that Alexa was doing. It was they were listening to bits and pieces of conversation to try to figure out what kind of programming you want to see, so that it could become intuitive and know before you. I mean, that's essentially what all this is. It's knowing. They want to know what we think before we think it.
Right.
It's all based on that, and. I'm sure you've heard over the years people say, it's like I was talking about something, and then I looked at my phone and I got an ad for. Yeah. That's precisely what they're doing. And I guarantee intelligence agencies have their fingers in it. This is not just companies. This is intelligence agencies also benefiting from, like the NSA.
Yeah, and they sent the FBI to somebody's house because he had posted something about Diddy parties. And they were like, look, you don't have to talk to us if you don't want to. I mean, he had him on, he was filming with his camera, and they're like, you don't have to talk to us if you don't want to. We're going around and talking to people who've been posting about these Diddy parties and this and that. We wanted to see if you had any information, or are you being paid to post this, and why you're posting this? And
it's intimidation.
Like, what's going on here? How do you know what you're doing?
Well,
they're watching everything.
It's violation of privacy, first of all, the right to privacy. And then it's an intimidation, like I mentioned earlier about
the Patriot.
As I told you both, I didn't support either candidate, but I would love to see Tulsi Gabbard as the head of the DNI, because she isn't in the machine. She's not part of the intelligence apparatus. She might actually release some things and look at some of their programs and end them, like the Clear Skies thing that targeted her. So, I mean, think about that for a moment. She's a veteran. She's a former presidential candidate, former Democratic congressperson, and they were tracking her. So like you're saying, they're doing to us on our phones. That doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Compared, if they're doing it to themselves, they're certainly doing it to us. If they're tracking us through all of our technology, they're certainly doing it to them too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Carmine, buddy, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Always great to be here, guys.
And folks, if you want to catch up with Carmine's presentation this weekend at Lancer, and you can't be there in person, or you want to go hear Joe and Doug's presentation in Lancer, or anybody else that's speaking that we talked about, and yes, we make fun a little bit, but we do so out of love. I think everybody that's presenting there this year should be heard. And if you have any interest and you can't get there, at least stream the thing. Like I said, it's not too late. You still sign up on the website at assassinationconference.com. Use our code GUMMAN10 to save yourself a little bit off the final bill. And Carmine, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, dude, we always have such a blast with you on here. And it's not the last time we'll have you on again. So the gravestone doesn't mean
exactly. I'll be back.
Captain Carmine did not die in 2020.
Yes, we need you, sir. We need you. And
America needs you, sir.
Yes, it's always a great conversation. I love how we could just talk for 2 hours, 20 minutes plus, and just have great conversations. And can't wait till you're on again, sir.
Me too. And I appreciate you guys having me back, and I look forward to the next one. And yeah, it was fun as always. And hopefully people got something out of our conversation. Hopefully they either got a new fact or learned something.
Absolutely.
And it was useful.
Well, the fun's not over yet.
As promised.
Oh.
Dino.
1 minute, Carmine. We're going to dance with Dean Andrews. Okay? Get your boogie shoes on. Here we go.
Well, I'll treat it. Listen, hip cats. I'll treat it.
Yes. Get your umbrella out, darling. Oh, shit. Okay, here we go, folks. Dino, take it away, buddy. Take us away.
Parish prison. He dare not talk for the record, but he said, "Come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you what I think of the case." The greatest lies are told in the name of truth. The greatest crimes are committed in the name of justice. The quotation is Jim Garrison's. It could be used for him or against him in this strange case. Good night.
Peace.
Peace, guys.